All right, whenever you're ready.
Okay. Hey guys, my name is Matt with Hobbyking, and today I've got another exciting product profile for you. For those of you who don't know what that is, a product profile is kind of an in-depth personal review of an aircraft, as it were. We're gonna pull this thing out of the box, put it together, show you how it goes, give you little tips and tricks about what makes it awesome, go out and show you how well it flies, cover all of that. Without further ado, let me get started. What is this? Pretty excited about this. This is the Hobbyking C-47/DC-3. Probably the most iconic and famous piece of aviation history ever. It's an excellent, excellent flying model, great scale performance. Really, really excited about this. It comes with a bunch of different schemes. I don't know what's in this box. Let's find out. I see airline decals. Now here's a particularly cool thing about this model. It comes unschemed. In other words, you can choose to put either of these schemes that come in the box. There is one for Finnair, and I believe Empire Airlines is the other. Find out. Yes, Finnair or Empire Airlines. Now, being that I'm a weirdo and I like doing that sort of thing, I think I'm gonna build this thing with Finnair on one side and Empire Airways on the other, so whether it's coming or going, I get a different model. Try that out. A bit of tape. Comes in a very plain box, but we're okay with that. What's on the outside that matters? We save the boxes anyway. Ta-da! Massive amounts of bubble wrap. Why do we like to see that? Because that means everything that's in this box is still in one piece. Got cool stuff everywhere. Very awesome, very scale. 3-bladed props with replaceable blades. So if you're out there and you are flying along, you scuff one of these guys, it is possible to buy just the blades and rebuild the props. So you don't always have to go taking this whole thing off of the model. That's pretty cool. Fishing through here. Wiring and hardware, always important. I see little control horn bits, so that should be fun. Bright silver horizontal stabilizer. Now, one of the things I like about this model also is they did a better job with the panel lines. A lot of times with these foam models, you get these ridiculously, I was open on one end already. You get these ridiculously overwrought panel lines where the thing just kind of looks like they've mashed them in. These are pretty deep and pretty dramatic looking. The reality is a real DC-3/C-47 is kind of a lumpy plane. They're pretty and they're cool, but they definitely had some very distinct panel lines and markings, and they come through on this model, which is awesome. A little bit old school, big fat plywood main wing spar. That's pretty cool. Vertical stabilizer. DC-3 C-47 manual from Hobbyking. Happy flying. Wings! Who doesn't love wings? Now, cool details abound. Come here. Okay. So, wing of the aircraft, you'll note there are landing lights and I believe nav lights on the end. You'll see they've done a nice job of taping and covering all of the servos and the wires underneath so that nothing shows through. Does have cool split flaps underneath as well as ailerons. Very exciting. Let's see here. Other wing. Also worth noting, or at least another cool feature I should say, of this particular model. Very, very cool scale landing gear. It's got big fat tires, so this thing flies really well off of grass or gnarlier fields. So if you're interested in something that's very scale, but you want to be able to fly it from somewhere maybe not such a good field or you don't have access to pavement, this model is an excellent choice. Of course, real DC-3s operate out of all of the worst places on the planet, so they do indeed survive that sort of treatment as well. And of course, piece de resistance, as it were, the fuselage. This thing is dope. Such a cool plane. It does have the remnant of the bubble if it were a C-47. If you were a real purist, you could kind of file that thing down and get a little silver paint and cover that up, because as you might know, DC-3s didn't have those. The front here is in fact the canopy hatch. Batteries and all the other goodness go in there. If I do this the way Stuart and I built the ones for the video, I will mount the receiver on top of the wing so it plugs in with this. Get to all that in just a minute. That, if I'm not mistaken, appears to be the entirety of the contents of this giant box. Okay, I am going to do some assembly. We're gonna time lapse that out. If I come across anything that I particularly think you guys need to know, we'll slow it back down and I'll spit it out. I'll have this thing built in just a couple of minutes. We'll get out there and see how it flies. Let's do this. So brief note on that wing that I just put together, it is a really good idea to pre-fit that plywood spar into the wing, make sure it's gonna go all the way in, and sort of train these wires to hang out first before you glue it together, because once you do that, this does become a one-piece wing, and once it's glued together, you won't be able to fix it.
Moving on.
Moving on. So the horizontal stab and the vertical stab are designed to be screwed onto the model so they can be taken on or off for transportation. However, unless you're taking this thing around in some really tiny vehicle, it's pretty much unnecessary to remove these two. So I'm gonna screw them in, but I'm also gonna glue them together, because in my experience, a large model like this, it's just not worth the risk of putting this stuff together with small screws. So if, like me, you've elected to glue the tail on this thing, you'll find this annoying little gap at the back. I'm gonna put a dab of glue in there and a little piece of tape, let that dry up and get rid of that annoying seam. Go ahead, let it kind of work its way into the seam. And be sure to clearance any excess away. So this stuff does foam up and turn yellow, and it will look terrible on your model. Little piece of green painter's tape that should not peel the silver paint off when we remove it. That'll keep that nice and tight while that glue sets and gets rid of that unsightly seam. So there are one sort of a mystery when you're putting all of this wiring together. There are 4 little wires here that are labeled sort of with little colored dots. You got a red, a green, and 2 whites. Those are
Show me those again real quick.
Yeah. You got a red, you got a green, you got these 2 which appear blank, but I'm guessing are white dots on white backing. Kind of like a polar bear in a snowstorm. Anyway, those go along with these 2 Y leads for the flaps. You'll see there's a bunch of these guys with 6 on them. These are your flap leads. So you're actually gonna get 2 sets of Y leads that are labeled 6. One of these is just for those 4 LED leads. The other is for the flaps themselves. So another kind of a handy thing when you're putting this guy together. Stu and I discovered this really cool thing you can do. If you put the whole receiver together, you can actually mount the receiver right here on top of the wing and totally embed it in the plane, which is cool and very clean. There's a couple things you gotta make sure you do if you're gonna do that. One of them is just get everything plugged in and bind to the receiver while the plane's still open like this. And you'll see inside here that we ship this thing with these rudder control rods disconnected and with the rudder screw for the servo just lobbed into the airplane, mounted on the top of the servo itself. You do need to fit this little rod here for the tail wheel. So you're gonna take this little servo rod for the tail wheel and make sure that you insert that into the assembly. It goes onto the servo first, because you won't be able to get it on there after you've mounted the servo on. There's not enough room. And now is the time to make sure that tail wheel is centered as well. So that's it for basic assembly. This plane goes together really, really well. There are no real complications there other than those little things I showed you. From here, I'm gonna stick the control horns on it, get it all stickered up. We'll go for a flight. Let's do it. So guys, that's gonna do it for the assembly and any notes I had on that. Just to recap, this is the 1600 millimeter Hobbyking DC-3/C-47. This is an excellent flying scale aircraft. You will fly it on a 3,000 to 4,000 milliamp hour 4-cell battery pack. I'm using our Nanotech A-Spec packs. It's a 3700. I particularly like that pack and balances out the aircraft very well. You will need a 6 to 8 channel receiver for this model. You will need a 6 channel receiver for this model. I've used an 8 channel FR Sky receiver. Now I've got a little treat for myself and for you guys out at the field. We are meeting up with my buddy Tom Hunt. Now Tom is an aeromechanical engineer from Grumman. He helps us out quite a bit from time to time with some of our model design issues. Very cool guy, really knows his stuff, and an excellent lifelong RC pilot. He's gonna put this thing through its paces while I talk to him a little bit about the model, share some of that with you guys, see how it goes. Let's go do it. So guys, once again, out at the flight field, my friend Tom Hunt here. We are going to put the C-47/DC-3 here through its paces and see how it looks in the sky. Tom, any thoughts about this model before you take it up?
It's a great looking model. I love the diminutive panel lines that has been more, come about in the last couple of models I've seen from Hobbyking Durafly. So, and the scale appearance is great. All the control surfaces look about the right size. The cowls are great. There are so many DC-3s out there that have these ugly looking cowls that don't represent the aircraft. So yeah, the scale details are great, and looks like a good model. Paint finish is great, so I'm looking forward to flying it.
All right, let's do that. Begin where they all begin. Scale takeoff time. Nice.
Yeah, a little sensitive on the rudder. I think next time.
Rocking back and forth.
Yeah, I think next time I'd have you probably reduce the rudder throw or put some more expo in it, but that's part of the dialing in process.
Sure. Always part of the learning process. We do give some recommended throws in the manual for this model that I'm pretty sure I ignored when I built it, so that's part of the process.
Okay, here come the gear. Nice.
Or there they go, as it were.
Yeah.
Now that's another awesome feature of this thing, by the way. We did put pretty big, pretty bouncy, boony looking tires on the thing, so it actually flies really well off of grass and off of funky fields, which of course the real DC-3 did all the time.
Right.
So yeah, we got that right.
Yeah, oh yeah, another nice solid model. I'm only flying at about quarter throttle.
So you're barely in there.
Yeah, and it feels very comfortable.
Slows down nicely.
Yeah.
You got the washout right, no nasty tip stall.
Yeah.
Again, on a long, thin, corded wing like this, real swept, narrow wing, that can be tricky.
Yes, there are many airplanes over the years that have suffered as models. The de Havilland Mosquito, de Havilland Comet,
yep.
The Rapide, the biplane, all those airplanes had those high aspect ratio wings with small tips as a model. But so far I'm not seeing any of that, although I'm not going too slow.
No.
But as slow as I am flying this, there's no tendency for it to drop a wing. And the aileron command is solid, right down to as slow as I feel I can fly it for what I call cruise flight.
Cruise flight. That looks beautiful in the sky. I have a real soft spot for this airplane, and this looks fantastic right now.
I'm flying both rudder and aileron in my turns, just a touch of rudder just to help coordinate the turns. And,
keeping it scale.
Yeah, keeping it scale. It does fly. This is just an aileron turn, and it's acceptable.
Oh, it doesn't look
for
that
those
bad.
that for those that just fly the aileron and don't realize there's a rudder stick on the other side until they land, there's no worries there. You can program in a little Proverse rudder in your transmitter if you want, but then if I add a little rudder, I get the turn I want. So
very nice.
It's a big, powerful rudder, and most people don't realize that vertical tails and rudders on twins are not sized for dynamic stability. They're sized for engine out.
Oh,
and
okay. So you can maintain.
So you can maintain trim with an engine out.
Okay.
And when you have an airplane that's got such a large vertical tail, when both motors are turned, you don't usually have a problem with stability or control.
Got it.
And they usually put too much rudder into their models, and can cause things like snap rolls and things like that. So it's wise to start with as little rudder as you can in the beginning. And these are contra-rotating props, aren't they?
That's correct. They are contra-rotating. I was going to mention that. So that it doesn't really have a critical engine, doesn't do anything too strange.
No. And then obviously, while they're both running, the torque and P effect are both negated. So it should turn equally well in either direction.
It looks really good.
Oh, it's just graceful airplane to fly.
Shut up and watch you do this.
Yeah.
That's, you know.
And again, I've hardly gotten above half throttle, except for even at takeoff. I don't use full throttle until I feel some situation warrants it. Okay. So I just add power slowly, steer with the rudder as necessary, and I get it to the point where if it starts to break ground at that throttle, then I add a little more throttle, just to give some positive rate of climb. And then based on the scale type of the airplane, like a DC-3, doesn't climb very fast. Running full throttle in this airplane is an emergency emergency situation.
Got it.
If nothing else.
Brilliant. Look at that thing. That's awesome.
Okay, don't know where this battery is at, so I think I'll set up for a landing.
All right. Get on in. Let's see how she looks.
Okay, turn on the final. Gear 2 showing. We've got a little bit of a head breeze, so I'm only going to use about half flaps this time.
Flap on that one. Good.
Little float.
And she's
not bad. I may have had you dial the elevator down a little too much because I was having a little trouble holding the nose up. So again, that's part of the dialing procedure. Yep, I think
but
once we get it,
nice gentle flyer.
Oh yeah, nothing wrong with this little model here. And it does taxi very well on the tarmac with the rudder throws you've given me.
Brilliant. All right. Well, hey, thanks again, Tom.
You're welcome so much.
As always, my scale consultant here. Thanks, guys. Bring you another one here real soon. See ya.